my challenge for today, side project from the Escort, is I'm going to have a go at remaking my sheet metal brake, or making one from scratch really. I made one many years ago, quite roughly, and it, to be fair, worked quite well for quite a long time, but it's now no good. I've used bits of it. I knew it had it, so I've ended up using bits of it for other projects. So I'll show you what's left of what we got and what I plan to do. Right, this is what I used to use and have been for a long time. It's a fiddle to use, and it's all a bit back to front, to be honest. It's just a couple of bits of box section and angle with, oh, hang on, hinges like that, just simply welded on. I'd have it in my vise. I had another piece of angle which is the same length, which I'd bolt through on the corners, and I would have a bit of metal in there, tighten the vise up, and over we go with that. And I fabricated quite a lot over the years with this, and it made surprisingly tight turns. It's not perfect, and it's a fiddle to use. But after looking at other sheet metal brakes and what other people have done, I've been going around this all backwards. So I'm going to start again from scratch, using what I've got basically in the garage. So a bit of 2x1 box there, and I make it 1 meter wide, and again it'll have to be vice mounted, because I just don't have the space to make a nice floor standing one. But if I have it vice mounted, that does give me a reasonable area there to work with metal. I'm very unlikely to be working with anything larger than that, not certainly in one go anyway. So let's see what we can do. Right, basic idea of this, not particularly complicated. That will turn like that. So your piece of metal will sit across there, clamp down with a bit of angle, like so, and as that turns, hey presto, got a folded piece of metal. And that's the principle of it. So what we need to do is work out some sort of hinging point that is essential to all of that. So what we'll need is, say for argument's sake, that's your hinge point. That would need to be right in there. So so we need to cut that out. What I was thinking of using was this metal bar, which you would have seen earlier me using when I was making these support channels, bars, tubes, that's the word, for the chassis rails on the Escort. So I've got a bit of this left over from what I bought. This is a 10mm. Well, it doesn't look like it there because I cut it off with the pipe cutters, but once I clean that out, that's a nice 10mm bore in there. So a 10mm bolt through there will make a nice pivot point. That's what I'm thinking. So what I need to do is trim this out so that will fit perfectly between there and there, and oh, this is a fiddle, there and there, if that makes sense. Right, so I've got these clamped together, as you can see, and clamped together in the vise that way, so this is nice and solid here. So what I need to do now is work out the outside diameter of this. Let's measure that. So zeroed my... Right, so if we measure that, the outside diameter of that, 16 and a half. I'll go with on that. Give it, oh no, 16. Hold the thing straight. So outside diameter is 16. So half of 16 is 8. So we need 8mm either side of that. I go this way around so I'm not in my own way here. So 8mm there, 8mm that way, that makes 16. Oops. Tighten that up a bit better. Alright, that's square down there. Then cut that out around there, so that would effectively fit in there. So the idea is I have two pieces of this, and one welded to one side, one welded to the other side, bolt through the middle, and hey presto, a hinge. Same the other side. Then the idea is that this then will all pivot at that point there, which will give us a nice square edge. That's the plan. Right, so that's my mark on that side. So I'll bring that down on this side, then plasma that out. I think that will work. 2 inches down that way first of all. And then 8mm this way. This is a fiddle. And then eye that to the end and honk it out with a plasma cutter. Let's try one and see what happens. Yes, that works. Right, that's kind of the idea, although I think I went a bit over the top with me cutting out. There's a bit of a slack there, but we can take that up with a weld, so it's not the end of the world. The important thing is that we're central in there. Now the next thing would be to cut this into 4 equal pieces and weld them in there with a bolt in between them to hold them in place, and find some way of keeping them dead straight to each other along the plane. So that's the next challenge. Okay, so after struggling backwards and forwards about how I'm going to get this to keep straight and central, along the length of this inch box section, I'm going to weld these in place, because with the nuts on the end, they sit. I don't know if you can see that, but if it's up on the edge, as it comes down on the flat of the nut, it's the same distance as the thickness of the tube, so that fits along there nicely. So what I'm going to do is square that up and weld that bolt onto there. Same this side, square it up and weld the bolt down, so these are still free. Then flip this over so it sits in there, and to keep my distance 8mm distance that I want, I'm just going to use a couple of bits of 8mm threaded rod laid across there, so it drops, keeps it up. But I want it to keep. That's the idea. Let's see if it works. So you can see that's welded on there now, so that those were straight with that bar, so that should keep the hinge in line with each other either side. And that 8mm rod, as you've seen, has worked a treat in holding that exactly where we need it. So the idea now is weld one to one side, one to the other side, tack them in for now, and then see if the hinge effect works. We appear to be on the right track, apart from welding that one to the same side. So we cut that off and put it on the right side, then that worked. And we have a hinge that pivots in the right place. So that's good news. So the next challenge now is to make the piece that goes onto there. Well, finish off welding these up and tidy them up first, and then work on to the next bit. Got these all welded up now, and nicely strongly welded with a couple of passes over either side to get it to be a nice thick bead, and that moves quite nicely now. So that's going to be a lot easier to use than what I had before. Right, the next thing we've got to sort out is this flex in it. So I need this to be mounted in the vise. What I'm thinking is on one of them, which will be this one because this will be the back end one, I'll weld a piece of something like that just along the back of it, just stitch that on, and then that'll sit in the vise nicely. If I remember to avoid welding the area where it sits in the vise, it'll fit in nicely into the vise. So that'll help with the bounce on that one. I'm hoping I don't have to put some sort of A-frame on this, because it's going to struggle to fit in the vise if I have to do that. So hopefully this will work, and this will be a tester on that one. On what will be this side, which will end up being this sort of the flat that comes up here, I'm also hoping I don't have to put some sort of framework in it to hold it, but we'll see how that pans out. It might just be a case of a bit of angle or something welded to it as well to give it the strength. Right, that's that bit welded on. So you'll have a gap in the middle there purposely for it to sit into the vise nicely. So that's stitched on both sides. So that should hopefully keep that flat. The idea, I was going to put it central to that, but I thought if I put it towards the back of that, that gives me a little more space with it coming forwards on the vise just a tad. Like so. So that's now in the vise. So you're going to have handles on this, but that moves up and down there quite freely now, so that's nice, and comes back now nice and flat as well, which is good news. So it's not binding up or anything like that, so happy days. Okay, so the next thing is to work out some sort of way of getting a bit of angle to fit down there nicely, and working out where exactly that needs to go. Okay, so this is the idea I've come up with. So this will obviously be the folding. This will be the bit that clamps down. So what I'm going to do, this is the theory anyway, is mark through there. So I've got to drill through there, and then this be welded to that on both ends of the clamp, and then some nut and thread arrangement here. So as you turn this, it will raise this up and down. So rather than having springs underneath here which forces it up when you undo a bolt, I'll have a whole handle arrangement here, so the whole thing will raise up and down with a captive nut on here or below here somewhere that will spin, which is welded to the threaded rod. So, and then a captive nut which is welded into here, so as you turn this, it'll effectively move this up and down. Okay, so got these welded down. So I've got a nut welded there, a nut welded there, so that captivates that piece there, and a nut welded underneath there. So as this, if I put a spanner on there now, see that moves that up and down. Obviously only tacked on at the moment, so I just wanted to check to see how it works. And I'm going to make some sort of handle arrangement for this next, but we're heading in the right direction. After a bit of scrounging around, found something perfect for the handles. A little bit of exhaust hangers. Happy days. Clean those up and weld them on. Ah, perfect. Stiff that way. Bit of grease under them will probably help. No end. Right. Next thing, handles on this. And I'm probably going to have to put some sort of triangle arrangement on this with a threaded bar on there to keep this down. Right, handle sorted. Just like that. A couple of bits of tube. A couple of bits of tube to fit into, and Bob's your uncle. Bend away, happy days. That make it a bit more easy to store as well. You can just pull that out and store it somewhere. So happy with that. Next challenge is to make the triangulated bit of over the top. Right, so the idea now is to get this triangulation malarkey over this. So the way this will work is this will be loose on here and tied into, welded into that, and as you turn this nut up, so push against that, which effectively pushes down on that. So over the usage, as this wears and tries to bend up, you can push it back down again and hopefully keep that running bending square. Not sure about this one yet, might have to do something similar to that, but we'll monitor and see how that one gets on. Right, there it is in all its raw and rusty glory. So there you work a treat. And we've already got a little bit of pre-stress going on in there, so that if you can see that angle, it bows very slightly like that now, so as it bolts down it'll clamp nicely in the centre. So I think it's time to test it out. Okay, let's try it out on this bit. So this is 1.3 millimeter. It's probably about as possibly 1.5 maybe. I try it on it, but that's about the thickness I'm most likely to use. So let's give it a whirl. Right, see if I can do this one-handed now. Get some oil on those. Right, let's see what happens. Well, that looks successful. That was very easy. Right, let's pull it out and see what sort of bend we got. Oop. I'm going to have to oil that. Yeah, I'm happy with that. That's as tight a bend as I'd expect to get on a bit of 1.3 to 1.5 mil. Yeah, lovely. I call that a success. Right, yeah, that's my metal brake. It's taken me most of the day to build that. I hope it's been of use to you. and give you some ideas. So just to go over again what I've done here, instead of having a spring there and a bolt you do an undo there, it's simply that nut and that nut are welded to that bit of threaded rod, and that nut is welded to there, and as a result it all goes up and down easily enough. So hopefully I'll get a fair bit of use out of that. And I've got a bending between there and there of about 900mm, so that'd be useful for most things. If I need to bend rather boxes, I'll have to have a think about how I'm going to do that. Maybe just maybe take this off altogether and just clamp shorter bits of box directly onto there as and when I need to do it. Other than that, I'm quite pleased with that. Happy days.